Have you ever wanted to make a cartoon but couldn't because of money, time, the money part? And even if you did get all those things, would it still be your cartoon? Well, I have good news for you. If you're a creative with ideas that you want to bring to life, you can do it with Firefly boards. So let's get started. Here you can see it's a blank canvas. And sure, I could totally just start prompting with one of the partner models, but I'm gonna bring in one of my own illustrations from Adobe Fresco because I want a little more control than that. This is animation after all. I'm gonna use this image as my reference with Firefly Image 5. The reason I'm using Image 5 is because of the 4 megapixel resolution. Now I'll start to describe what I want the character to look like, the kind of style that I'm going for. And I'll use phrases like cinematic lighting and blah, blah, blah texture and a whole bunch of other design terms. I mean, look, just because it's Gen AI doesn't mean you can just abandon those design principles you spent years mastering. You still need to use those. Now, I hit that generate button a few times just to see what I get. I do really like this version of the character that I got, but I feel like it could use a little color correction and a few other things. I'm gonna go over to Photoshop where I can import the image I just generated and make those slight tweaks. I could totally spend all day trying to prompt one of the models, but the reality is it's just gonna be faster if I go into Photoshop and do this part myself. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I think that looks pretty good. Now going back over to boards, I'm gonna import and select that image I just color corrected, reference it with Gemini 3, and use that to generate my character sheet. Something we're gonna need because animation, and we're gonna wanna have character turnarounds and all those things. I usually find that if I take the old prompt and just add in character turnaround somewhere in here, Gemini 3 does a pretty good job at figuring out what I'm asking for. Now that I have some variations of this character that I can reference to maintain consistency, I'm gonna go ahead and start to prompt to get some kind of props. Let's give a tired sun a cup of coffee. This is looking pretty good right here. Now, I do think the idea of a cartoon sun kind of standing on a porch in the middle of winter with a bunch of snow at night is a funny concept. So we're gonna start prompting and generating more images. Now, I will say, sometimes I will rough sketch out the scene that I wanna create and kind of do the same process, but with a background. But for this demo specifically, I'm just focused on character consistency. This scene's looking pretty good, and I really like where it's going. We're pretty close to getting ready to generate the actual video, but I'm gonna wanna use first and last frame for this. Something that I always kind of find with generative video, especially when you're using a first frame as reference, it can start to kind of deviate from that character. So it helps if you kind of ground it with your first and last frame. A sun character standing on his porch in the dark drinking coffee. I bet you once he takes that first sip, he's gonna kind of like, wake up and maybe some of the snow melts. So why don't we try to build that scene out? I will say I do have to go back into my character references to kind of generate a version of the character where he's, happy because he just drank his coffee and awake. That would be an important thing too, I guess. We have this second image now of the sun character. He's awake, he's drank his coffee, the snow is kind of melting, it's daytime out, that's nice. And we're gonna use that as our last frame. So I ran this a couple times with a few different models, Gemini, Firefly, Sora, and while I got some really interesting results, the one that really stuck with me was Ray 3. I do really like Ray 3. I think that it's a model that works very well, and it usually does maintain that kind of character consistency that I feel like I look for when doing any kind of animation. Now, I can export this and bring it into something like Premiere Pro where I can add in those kind of final touches, sound design, color correction, all that good stuff. The best part about this process is I can go back into my board and I can start to kind of iterate even further. Add more props, add new characters, change up the scene, kind of whatever my imagination wants to create. Firefly and its partner models make it easier than ever to turn your wildest animated ideas into reality. So now it's your turn. I want to know what the big idea is that you've been waiting to bring to life.